Hi there, my name is Manish and today we're going to do a quick rundown on the Desktop Central features. Desktop Central is a very popular unified endpoint management solution that is used to manage endpoints like laptops, mobile devices, desktops from any corner of the world. In this presentation, we're going to look into the prime core features of Desktop Central. We're going to look into installing patches in a timely manner. We'll look into the software deployment, that is, deploying the software without the end user's intervention and software metering. We'll also look into the IT asset management, as in managing software, hardware, various digital resources, licenses in your IT network. And we'll also look into a few tools that can be used to amp up your workforce productivity. So before going into Desktop Central, let's look at the architecture first. Now, Desktop Central is hosted on a local machine. Now, this Desktop Central server pushes a lightweight application called an agent into the end machines, the end users' machines here. Now, these agents, they carry out various tasks that are initiated by the system administrator in the Desktop Central server. These tasks might include patch scanning, patch management, patch installation, apart from patching, software deployment, IT asset management, license installation, everything. Now, this is a setup of a local office. Suppose you have a remote office in some other location in the world. In that case, we employ something called a distribution server. This distribution server carries out the tasks that are initiated by the Desktop Central server in the local office. So the distribution server basically deploys all the tasks, whatever is required, in the agents of the remote office. Now, what is the distribution server and why do I need it? Suppose, let's say you have 1,000 endpoints in your remote office and you want to download and deploy a software package, 1 GB software package into each of these 1,000 endpoints, 1,000 client machines. Now, in the absence of a distribution server, if these endpoints they contact directly with the Desktop Central server, each and every agent will be downloading the 1 GB file, and as a result, 1 multiplied by 1,000, you'll be downloading 1,000 GB of files over the internet. But with the presence of a distribution server just downloads that 1 GB file package and deploys it to the 1,000 endpoints in that particular office. So where without a distribution server, 1,000 GB is spent on the internet bandwidth, in the presence of distribution server, all you need is 1 GB. Also, Desktop Central employs the use of something called a secure gateway. Secure gateway secures the mobile device's communication from the internet to the Desktop Central server. Secure gateway bridges the agent traffic to the central server over internet. Desktop Central server is also integrated with the Active Directory to fetch the AD objects to help deployment of agents and other deployment tasks. You can also use Desktop Central for a closed network in case you don't want to expose your system to the internet. Also, you also have cloud solutions in Azure and AWS products. You can use Desktop Central, you can host it on a cloud and employ a distribution server to generate on-demand tasks into the end machines. Let's look into the agent installation methods for now. There are primarily 3 different ways to install agents. You can initiate the group policy in Active Directory, you can manually deploy the agent, or you can automate the agent installation from the console. Speaking of console, let's go to the console and have a look. So, this is the basic Desktop Central console we have. Each and every tab gives you a particular functionality. So in case you want to add computers to manage from the Desktop Central server, you have to go to the admin first, and you can add various domains over here. So you can choose to add an Active Directory or work group. I've added a bunch of domains already myself. So after adding domains, you can go to the scope of management settings and you can add computers, just like that. You can add computers using a particular domain. You can filter based upon the computer agent, or you can choose to download an agent and install them randomly using a USB stick or a network share. So in this case, I have 3 computers right now being managed. The green ones indicate that my agent is active in my client machine. The red shows that the agent is down or the computer is shut down. Now let's look at something called the 90-minute refresh policy of Desktop Central. So this 90-minute refresh policy is the real reason which makes Desktop Central scalable from a small-scale network to a large-scale network. Because of this 90-minute refresh policy, you can manage all sorts of network. So this 90-minute refresh policy says that every agent communication with the Desktop Central server happens once in 90 minutes. Be it 90 machines, 900 machines, 9,000 machines, each machine is given a specific time to talk to the server. Why is this done though? This is done to avoid the network congestion, because if your client machines, all your client machines try to contact the Desktop Central server at the same time, you can't, it will eat up your bandwidth. So in order to conserve bandwidth and to make Desktop Central scalable, this particular 90-minute refresh policy is introduced. Let's look at the first main feature, and one of the first core features any endpoint management solution is supposed to suffice. That is the patch management. Patch management is crucial because you would want all the patches in your computer as soon as possible, ASAP. Now, let's go to the console a bit and check out the patch management tab. So we have a very clean interface here, and they've given, you can choose the patches, you can have a list of missing patches right here. Now, installing patches is as easy as selecting the patches you want, and then you can install this patch into any machine you want. So let's go on with this installation and let's see how this works. So when you decide to install certain patches in certain computers, you have to give a certain configuration name. You have 2 options of uninstalling the patch and installing the patch. Uninstalling the patch is used in case you want to roll back certain patches. You can choose to roll back patches. Next, you have the scheduler settings here. You can choose to install after a certain date or time. And we have something called the deployment settings here. This is one of the core features of patch management or Desktop Central in general. Now, what is deployment policy? Deployment policy is basically a set of rules that you set up to optimally download the particular patch in your system. So let's go ahead and try to create a modified deployment policy. So I already have a bunch of policies here. Now let's try to create a policy. I can just name it as test 13. 13 is my lucky number. Now, there are 4 main tabs. The first is deployment schedule. Now, I can choose to do it on a regular split or a patch Tuesday split. The regular split means you start your first week from the first day of the month. Whereas in the case of patch Tuesday, it means you choose the second Tuesday as the first week of the month. As in, second Tuesday will be the Patch Tuesday week, and the following week will be the first week. So the best part about Stock Central, if you had noticed, they have prompts at each and every place wherever required for you to better understand the product. So even if you are a system administrator with no prior experience, or you're just learning the ropes of your organization, you can look at the various prompts here. Everything is clear, the content is crisp, and the customizations are vast. Now let's look into the preferred week of deployment. So I can choose to select all weeks, or maybe I just want to install in the second week. I'm going to just put in all days, and I need to mention my deployment window. So I'm going to give the time limits in which these patches must be deployed. So I can also choose to initiate deployment based on these factors. So I can choose to deploy at the system startup of any client machine, or I can choose to deploy this in the refresh cycle, in the 90-minute refresh policy just we saw. Or I can choose to deploy at any time, whichever happens earlier. So after that, I have a bunch of pre-deployment settings. So what does this mean? So I can choose to automatically wake up the computers before deployment, or to learn more about this, you can just click over here and you will have complete explanation, thorough explanation of what it's. Also, I would like to download patch or software during the subsequent refresh cycle. So what does this mean? So when you enable this option, it means that the agent, it will not wait for the deployment window to happen. So patch binaries will be downloaded in the next agent refresh cycle, and deployment will be carried in the deployment window. So as soon as the patch scan happens, the patch downloads will start occurring, and based on that, you can deploy patches. You can also choose to notify the end user whatever deployment message title. I'm just going to not choose. And the reboot policy. Do you want the end client machine to reboot or shut down, or you just want to don't reboot? And if I set save, I have a new policy created here. So it's pretty much easy. So this deployment policy we'll even see in the software deployment cycle. Also, all of this, whatever we saw, was basically manual deployment. We can also automate the patch deployment. Now, let's go back to the presentation. So, before moving on to the automated patch deployment, let's just go through the patch management architecture now. Now, when a patch is released, it is available in the vendor. Desktop Central's patch crawler team scours the internet to fetch these patch informations from the vendor side. The patches are tested, cleaned in their environment, and a bunch of checks are done, like compatibility checks, applicability checks, and then it is published in the central patch repository. The Desktop Central server syncs periodically with the central patch repository to download the vulnerability database periodically. Once this is done, the client machine is scanned for the missing patches based upon the vulnerability scan that we receive. After identifying the missing patches, the Desktop Central downloads the missing patches onto the client machine, downloads it and deploys it to the client machine. Now, let's look into automated patch deployment. Now, whatever we did so far, let's go to the console here. In this case, all your patches, you have to click a few buttons to install these patches. In automated patch deployment, you don't have to intervene manually anything. Instead, the patch scan the vulnerability scan, the patch download process, and the patch deployment all happen on its own. So you can choose to configure a task. I'll just go and modify this particular thing. Task. So again, I have a deployment policy. So I can set a few applications what I want to enable. So in my case, I've enabled security updates, the critical security updates. I want them to be installed in my network without any intervention as soon as it's released. So after that, I can even choose third-party updates also. You might want all critical updates, antivirus updates, like definition updates. It's usually recommended not to add antivirus updates, definition updates the same, like automated patch deployment side task, because the bandwidth might be clogged. So you might want to add a separate automated patch deployment for antivirus updates alone. So after this, you can choose a deployment cycle, and you can define target machines based upon the local office or based upon a particular domain. Filter them out if you want based upon certain computer, custom group, or IP address or IP range. You can also configure notifications to receive a set of reports after an automated patch deployment takes place. So this is the basic cycle of APD. So whenever an APD task, an automated patch deployment task is set, based upon the deployment window, the download and deployment occurs in the same cycle, and the report is sent after the deployment to the mail notification server configured. Now let's look into software deployment for a while. Now, software deployment more or less follows almost the same architecture. Now, a software can be deployed to a LAN or a WAN. So, local office or a WAN, that is, a remote office. The process of software deployment kicks off with the creation of a package. A package is a single software or a set of software and applications. So this package creation, to store the package, Desktop Central offers two different storage options. One is network share, and another is an HTTP or HTTPS share. Now, network share is suitable for your local office, and you need to make sure that all these client machines have access to this particular share. In the case of HTTP or HTTPS share, this can be used to deploy softwares both in the local office as well as in the remote office. For WAN, the software is downloaded in the distribution server, and the distribution server distributes it to the end machines here. So let's go to the console and have a look at software deployment here. So if you say the software repository we just saw, we can actually choose to configure that particular location. So we have a network share HTTP repository. Now each has its own devices and pros and cons. A network share, you don't have any file. You can basically share a file without any file size limits. Whereas in HTTP repository, you need the maximum size of the file can be up to 7 GB. In network share, you need to maintain it regularly, but in HTTP repository, you don't have to maintain. So you can choose to change your location to some other repository based upon your convenience. Yeah. Now, if I want to find which computers have a particular software or do not have a particular software, in that case, I will go to a report section to find out a list of computers which lack a particular software. So just go here, go to custom groups. Now in custom groups, I can create a new custom group over here. So here in the custom group section, we have three different things. There is static. So static basically means that the group that you create here, they are transferred into the group. Static unique means that the computer's control static unique is unique to only that particular group, and it cannot be used in any static group. Dynamic group means you can set a bunch of criteria so that the Staff Central intelligently identifies in one case a particular computer in that particular group. So in this case, I would like to find a computer that does not have the software Microsoft Teams. So in that case, I'll just go back. I've created a custom group, dynamic group already, which finds me a list of computers which don't have Microsoft Teams. So these are the list of computers. I can export this particular report for further reference. In this case, now that we know that these particular computers don't have Microsoft Teams, I'll go back to the software deployment to deploy Microsoft Teams, and this is the computers. So in the software deployment, in the package creation, we have two things called package templates. So whenever you would like to install any software, it is advisable to go to the template section first, and then check if you have the particular software there. You can search for software. Teams. Yeah, we have Windows, Microsoft Teams, and you can select the particular application. Windows. Go. And you can choose to create a package. Yes. So if you look into this particular, what we just installed. So while the package is being created, let's try to understand what templates is. So templates is basically we collected and collated around 8,000 applications under the templates tab, so that we can easily access them without having to put them on the internet. So any time you want to install the software, you're supposed to first come here. As a check, you can just look up in the template section. Now, the software applications that are available in the template section, they are mostly either MSI or EXE. In the case of EXE, they have silent switches. You just yeah. Okay, this doesn't have installed switches. Suppose I look for something. Say, let's go for 7-zip. Yeah. So I create this. I create package. And most of it is basically the non-commercial software. In the case of commercial software, like let's say Microsoft Office 2016. When you click on this, you don't have any, you cannot create a package from here, but you have a how to doc on how to install this particular software. So the thing is, it's quite vast. I mean, the same applies for even different commercial things, because Microsoft Office 16 requires a license. So you cannot just download it from here. You can just create a package and then deploy it on a computer. In that case, you have to follow a set of measures that is given here and deploy it to your end users. Okay. Now, I am going to, let's say, I can install or install a particular software based upon the user or the computer configuration. So in this case, I can just create the themes which we need, install, and I can configure the install and uninstall options. I can run as a system user or run as a user. The flexibility is amazing, and you can just schedule your installation after a particular date or time. I'm just going to go with system user here. And again, you have a deployment policy which you can attest here. I'm choosing to deploy at any time the earliest. So the same thing that we noticed back in the patch management. And I can choose to define the target. So in my case, I'm going to choose select all, and then I'm going to filter based on type of custom group, no Microsoft Teams. So whatever custom group I created previously, I can use the same custom group, a dynamic custom group, and choose to install in those particular machines. So even if you have new joinees who are joining a particular team which needs Microsoft Teams, the Desktop Central will automatically detect that particular machine and deploy Microsoft Teams. I can also choose to exclude a particular target here. So this is another layer of customization I have with me. And for execution settings, I can choose to retry this for 2 times, or I want it to retry as many times as you want, like 7 times, and I can choose on how many times during startup and how many times during refresh. It's basically up to me. So it allocates automatically, like if I just say 3 and 2, it says, okay, 2 times during startup or refresh, whichever is earlier. I can enable notification. So it's quite vast. So I can choose to deploy or deploy immediately. The difference between these two being, if I click deploy right now, Desktop Central will deploy these software packages in the next refresh cycle whenever the agent contacts the Desktop Central server. If I choose to deploy immediately, irrespective of the refresh cycle, it will just be deployed as soon as possible. Also, in software repository, you have something called the self-service portal here. So what is a self-service portal as in? Sometimes, being a system administrator, users might always ask you for certain software. So I can choose. So self-service portal is basically helps the end user, the client machine, to self-serve certain tasks that might not be important for the system administrator. Suppose the end user wants a particular software. He doesn't always has to raise a ticket to the system admin asking for software. So I've installed an agent right here in my computer. I'll just open the self-service portal and show you here. This is something it looks like. So, as a system administrator, I've given permissions to install Google Chrome, Teams, Windows, and WinZip. And from an end user's point of view, I can just choose to install them one by one. So it's as simple as that. So I know we're kind of rushing in through the entire module, but even in spite of rushing, there are so many different features. I mean, once you try the software, It's only after that you realize how much flexibility and control you have in yourself. As a system administrator, as you can see from here, I'm pretty much at ease by using the software. You also have a bunch of quick links on how-to's, knowledge base, and vendor variables for you. And in case you're not able to find any particular feature in any options, you can always choose to search from here. For example, let's say I just forgot how to configure my secure gateway server. I can choose to go just a minute. Go to admin. I can choose here. I can search for from anywhere secure gateway server. So right here, I have two tabs. I have the articles, different help documents and knowledge base for related to secure gateway server, or I can directly just click here to go to that particular option and configure them. So the customization is just on top. Okay, after going through software deployment, we just do a quick run through of the inventory. Going back at so in the case of IT asset management, you can organize these features, these particular assets, hardware, software, driver details, certificates, security details, and everything. So how does IT asset management work? So what happens is, Desktop Central Server, first of all, it initiates a particular scan. This scan, when it is first scanning a client machine, it does a complete scan of the client machine and it stores the information. Now let's say after the scan, some software or hardware has been removed or installed and some changes have occurred in the same client machine. In the next scan, Desktop Central won't actually scan it completely again. It will just scan the difference in the first scan and the next scan, and it will send the differential data back to the Desktop Central server. So again, this is another way to conserve your bandwidth. So every time, except after the first scan, every time the Desktop Central server scans the end machine, it is always the differential scan that is reported to the server back again. So let's go back to the console here and just try to understand inventory. So I can choose to scan systems everything all at once, or any one particular systems over here. And I can also choose different scan settings. Like I can configure scan settings, like what do I want to scan. So if you look at the scan systems, it gives me a status of success of the scans. This particular scan has failed because it hasn't contacted. The agent is down as of now. Also, you have a list of IT assets that's segregated in computers and hardware. For example, I can choose one particular computer and I have all the information related to it. I can have a summary. I have a quick look at what operating system the hardware summary. I can also choose to go to individual tabs and check out the system, hardware, software, and different certificates that are installed in this particular machine. History. If I go look at the hardware, I have a bunch of different hardware. I can choose to segregate, like what are my hardware in which I have the BIOS. So yeah. For software also, I have a bunch of software that is present in each and every computer. Now, the main thing with Desktop Central, what I can do is, this is just, you can just explore it and tinker with it and depth of these features. Now, I can manage my licenses using Desktop Central. Now, under this, we have 3 different categories of licenses. So, suppose I have 1, 2, and 3. So, over licensed means like I have the number of licenses I purchased is more than my client machines, my network. Under licensed would mean that the number of machines in my entity network are more than the number of licenses purchased. And incomplete means the number of licenses I purchased is same as the network installations. So this gives you a snapshot of which software you want to buy or not. Okay, so you can choose to modify this particular tab, and you can edit these license details and can just put in your license key. And you can also manage which computers are associated with this particular license here. Yeah. So it's pretty much simple. Now let's go into something called software metering. So software metering summary, it gives me my report is not pre-generated, so I'm not able to show you a software metering summary. But software metering summary usually shows me, it gives you a vast information on particular software, how much is being used, and the extent of it or not. So I can just show you, modify this particular thing. Next, I have something called the application control. That is, when it comes, this is in restrictive, as in I can prohibit a particular software from running in the network, or I can block a particular application from execution. So prohibit software, I can add a prohibit software or remove a prohibit software. So basically, the difference between prohibit software and block executable is prohibit software, it helps you detect the already existing software that is barred in your organization, and it helps you remove it. You can choose to have an auto uninstall policy, and you can choose to have the status of auto uninstall. So auto uninstall policy, you have like every time system computer is starting up, you can choose to have the number of applications you'd like to remove in the computer startup. It can be 5 or it can be 2. We recommend to not keep it more than 5 because in that case what happens is your system startup is delayed and your productivity is reduced. In the case of block executable, I can choose to block certain exe files from running in the first place. So I can add a policy and I can choose to block executable in 2 different ways. One is I can choose a particular path, or I can choose a hash function. So I can choose any group, users, I can choose from here based upon thing. So I haven't configured anything, so I'm not able to show you a example. So yeah, so in this case, when I click on add executable, I can actually list the application name like say torrent, and I can choose to block the execution of the torrent in path or hash. Path as in like I can choose to block the exe file based on its name. Suppose there is a pathway, say c/torrent, so it detects the file name and it blocks it. Suppose your end users are smart enough and they change the name, they rename your path. You can use the hash function to upload the executable here. When you use the hash function, you can, even if you change the name of your exe file, you still can remove it. And we also have this report section, inventory reports, which gives you a variety of reports that you can generate. Like you can generate a local, you can generate like the share details. You can also generate computers with local administrator accounts. You can generate even the disk usage, and you have a bunch of reports. But let's say I can also create something called the custom reports. So I'll just edit. So what is custom report? So all these reports, what you see here, it is basically a single particular factor. In the case of custom report, I can choose a bunch of factors. I can just number of processors, total capacity. So I can choose this particular thread column, domain name equal to So this means I can choose to list down the computer, hardware or the software of the domain which does not belong to Zoho Corp. And I can select certain columns and I can run the report for one-time use, or I can run and save to save this format for further reference. So I've already created a custom report here. Just click on it. Yeah. So you can see. So I can either choose to export this in various formats, whatever I want. Yes. Let's go back to the inventory. Yeah. So you can see from license management to prohibiting the software, blocking it, to generating a bunch of reports that are useful to monitor the IT asset status of your organization. The inventory covers it all. In fact, even you can, because of this license, because you can manage your licenses through inventory, you can also choose to detect computers or systems which do not have existing software, which do not use the software but someone else might need it. You can also do that by scanning systems. So the flexibility is amazing. So even we're just touching upon the basic features, but once you use the product, the customization options are just amazing. So yeah. Okay, let's go back to the Stop Central. So next you have something called the tools. In the tools option, okay, we just go back to the console. So in tools, we have a bunch of tools here to manage and have productivity, like I mentioned before. So you have remote control, which is one of the most commonly used. So let me just demonstrate to you how remote control is being used. And before that, let's go into the option here. Yes, so what happens is I can connect, when I choose connect, I can send a message saying, hey, I need to access your computer. So once I set connecting, so I'm actually trying to connect it to my personal laptop, and there it is, my laptop. So what actually happens behind this particular remote tool? So what happens is, like, whenever one particular technician, say number 1, technician 1, clicks on the connect, the message of the request is actually goes and placed in the Desktop Central server. Now, Desktop Central server has 2 different servers in between itself. So the request that is initiated, the connect request initiated from the technician 1, it goes and actually is placed in the notification server. The target client takes this request to the notification server and it relays back the acceptance of that particular request to the gateway and the technician, and then from the gateway it is visible by the technician. So all of this happens without installing any particular additional software in the end user. Basically, the agent acts in itself as the software, and all the photos and display of this particular target client can be fetched by the technician 1 from this gateway here. I have too many tabs open. So let's get into this particular So in remote control, you have a bunch of other softwares. You have a bunch of other functionality. You can choose to fiddle with the screen resolution size. You can actually do a bunch of operations, like you can blacken. Suppose you are moving something crucial from the using a network share here. So you can move files from here to here. Like you can choose this particular file and you can move it over here. Suppose you don't want the end users to see this particular operation because you have confidential files here, you can choose to blacken the end user's monitor. So when you put blacken monitor, the remote monitor has been blackened. The end user is not able to see his or her computer anymore. So once you're done with the file transfer, you can again open it and you can revoke monitor so that the end user can see his or her computer again. You also have the chat option here, text, voice and video call. Again, you don't need any additional software to do all this. The agent does everything on behalf of itself. In the quick launch settings you can directly access the command prompt of the client machine. Control manager, display settings, power option. You can choose to reboot from in this particular session in itself. Also, to tell you that the remote connection will not be disrupted even if you reboot the system. So that's how good Desktop Central is. Suppose another technician wants to join this particular session. In that case, all the technician 2 has to do is to click on the connect option and it can directly fetch the files, that is the display that is being shared in the gateway from there, and you can access it. So once you click disconnect, you can just choose to. Apart from these kind of tools, you can make announcements. Suppose when you have something urgent which you want all the end users to notice, you can choose to create an announcement, and you can put down your message, and you can choose the frequent. Again, I mean, these features you might never use them, but that's how ingenious Desktop Central is. The customization is immense, layered deep within. You have the option of wake on LAN. You can wake up a computer even if it's connected to a power source. You can wake up down on LAN. You have something called remote shutdown. You can choose any one of your client machines, and you can choose to remotely operate them. And you have something called System Manager, in which you can manage various tasks, printers, and all the stuff. So, and also have a bunch of system tools. You can add different tasks like disk checkup, cleanup, defragmenter on the target you want. So the point for Desktop Central is pretty strong. I mean, I promised you that I'll cover this in 30 minutes, but it's been about an hour, and that's how deep Desktop Central is. And even after me explaining so much, we've barely scratched the surface, but there are deep customizations we have much further in that proves that Desktop Central is one of the superior endpoint management solution out there. So, yeah. So you can, all of this we talked about, this is barely just scratching the surface. And if you want to experience the number of features that you have, customizations, the planning, the pricing is quite effective, and it's completely provides you a greater ROI. So you can choose to download, give it a try. Up to 25 end users we have completely free. So you can give it a try, and if you want to make a further buying decision, you can always choose Desktop Central for your needs. The best part of Desktop Central is that the customization options, the help documents, the knowledge base, I mean, with limited experience in system administration, you can still maneuver your way through controlling a bunch of endpoints. And I haven't started on with these configuration options. You have mobile device management and other. I haven't even touched these tabs. And still, this is all. I thought I could do it in 30 minutes, but it took me an hour to explain what this is all about. So anyways, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any doubts and questions, please let me know. Thank you.